Shalom, everyone. This is Dave from Universal Truth and Mankind. I am your host, and this is Buyer Beware. This is where we go beyond the surface, the English translation of our Bible, and we try to remove dogma and doctrines that have been put in place for thousands of years and try to understand what the passage is actually saying to us. Sometimes we have to get into the Hebrew, sometimes we have to look at older sources to get a better idea and a grasp of what's going on. Now, before I get started, please like and share these videos. They're all free. I'm not expecting anything from anybody, as can be evidently seen through all my 300 plus videos so far. Also, I am on Rumble as well as YouTube, and I've been finding that Rumble is now starting to outpace YouTube. So I don't know how long I'm going to stay on YouTube. YouTube, they keep dialing me back. So we'll see. Anyway, just keep that in mind. Today we're going to be dealing with Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 11 to 14. This is a passage that is rarely used. I use this passage whenever evangelicals come after me. Because if you properly understand this passage, it totally debunks their narrative. Now, understand, I'm not against religions per se. I'm against misrepresentation of passages. That's my goal, is to say, hey, this is what the passage says, not what you're saying. So Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 11 to 14, we're going to be dealing as a unit. I'm not going to deal with just a single verse, but the whole thing. Yeah, we have to keep this, as always I say, context, context, context. We have to keep the passage in context. So before we even delve into these four verses, what's taking place around it? Well, in this particular case, this the passage before and after are dealing with the the curses and the blessings and the curses. You abide by my dictates, as God says, you're going to be blessed. If you don't, you're going to be cursed. But at some point, you will all come back. So these four verses is talking about a key aspect of these blessings and the curses and what we're ultimately looking to do. So here are the verses. Verse 11 says, surely this instruction which I enjoin upon you this day is not too baffling for you, nor is it beyond reach. It is not in heaven that you should say, who among us can go up to the heavens and get it for us and impart it to us. I apologize for going slowly because I'm trying to emphasize each word here as we're going through this, that we may observe it. Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us, that we may observe it. No, the thing is very close to you, in your mouth and in your heart, to observe it. So, what is this passage telling us? Well, remember, this is Moses who is speaking. So, and what is he really speaking of? Well, ultimately speaking, he's talking about the covenant, as I like to call the Torah the true testament. The Torah is holy, meaning complete. It's lacking nothing, and it has no more than it needs to have. It is complete in and of itself. It does not require any additional information, does not need anything to be removed from it. It is the hope of mankind. There is no other hope of mankind. It's also telling us that Moses brought it to us. Thus, there is no one greater than Moses. Now, right there destroys certain narratives, doesn't it? Quite easily. Now, remember, I'm reading this verse according to what it is saying. I studied. What I've done is I looked at the Zohar, I looked at the Mishnah, I looked at the Talmud, both Babylonian and Jerusalem Talmud. I looked at Midrash Rabbah. I've also looked at other various works. I've also looked at works done by the great sages like Rashi and Ibn Ezra and so on and so forth, which is the medieval interpreters of the Torah. So I've spanned quite a gamut of sources here to come up with what the passage is saying and removing any doctrines or dogma that has been placed upon it by various religious leaders. So we see in the very first verse that there is there's this thing saying, hey, this thing we've been given is not a baffling thing. Now, remember what I said. This is placed in the right in the middle of the curses and the blessings. So it needs to be understood what the curses and the blessings are telling us. Now, if you go to the first 10 verses of this chapter, you will find out that the curses and the blessings are being spoken of, but it's telling us that we as a people will err, we will leave what? The covenant, but we will return. Now, you have to pay very close attention to what's being stated here within those first 10 verses. It's telling us that you and I will leave this, but we will come back. Now, does that mean within the same generation? Yes. Does that mean future generation? Yes. Well, how can I return to it 20 generations later unless I come back? See, this is where reincarnation is without a doubt implied. It may not use the word reincarnation, but it's describing reincarnation. Unfortunately, a lot of people out there look for the word reincarnation. Show me where it says reincarnation in the Bible. Well, I can't. It's not there. But I can show you where it's implied. And people are like, well, it doesn't say it, so I don't believe it. Well, it implies it because how can you return to it generations later unless you do come back to it, unless you come back? There's a lot more we can talk about on reincarnation, but this is part of this subject here that we are going to come back. So through multi-generational returns, and like I said, there's more to reincarnation saying, oh, Dave was here 1,000 years ago. Now Dave's going to be back again. If you listen to my previous videos, I do talk about that a little bit more. But pieces of me come back. Pieces of me return. Pieces of me get refined. So that's how this is not going to be baffling to me. Because as time goes on, the whole purpose of reincarnation is to learn. I'll give you an example. My son the other day said to me, I don't remember my childhood, Dad. I remember very little. I said, son, it's not about remembering your childhood. It's about learning. Do you remember burning your finger on the stove? No. Or putting your hand into a fire? No. Would you do that? No. Why? Because somewhere along the way you learned about it. You don't remember how or when, but you learned not to stick your finger on the stove or stick your hand in a fire. And that's carried from generation to generation as we learn more and more and more, that type of stuff. Have you ever been in a situation where you just know the right thing to do? Well, how do you know? Unless, of course, you've gone through it once before. Have you ever had deja vu? Yes, you've gone through it before. Maybe in this lifetime, maybe in another lifetime. Usually another lifetime. That's what I find with myself. So it's not beyond us because it's becoming part of us over time. Now, you may be saying, well, that's nice, but aren't we talking about the covenant? Yes, we're learning about the covenant. We're learning about the Torah, the first five books of our Bibles. We're learning how to apply it. We're learning what it means. This is why I tell people, don't worry about what you don't understand when you're studying. Worry about what you do understand because obviously you know that. So apply that, and little by little, you're going to learn more and more. And these things will become less and less baffling. Now, in verse 12, it says, it is not in the heavens. In other words, no one has to die to go to heaven and bring it down. Now, I'm going to throw an example here. We do sometimes talk about, well, resurrection in the Torah. Yes, there is a resurrection. There is death. There is life. Well, how do you do those things? Well, think about it for a moment. What is ultimately our being? We are nothing more than a big bundle of desires. That's what we are. We have a desire to scratch our head. We have a desire to drink a glass of water. We have a desire for a Twinkies. We have desire for a certain, in my case, as being a male, a particular girl, a woman. Fortunately, it's my wife. I think she'll be happy about that. But we're just nothing more than a big ball of desires. So as we learn what desires are bad for us. Now, I am now approaching 60 years old, and I've learned how to eat right. But when I was younger, I ate horribly. I eat good foods now. I'm very careful about what I eat. I've learned. I've learned to taper my desires for M&Ms, for Three Musketeers, for Godiva, for ice cream, and so on and so forth. Yes, I will sometimes occasionally have those things. So we're learning to take care of our desires. And that's what the Torah is all about. What are the commandments about? To develop desires and to remove desires. That's ultimately what we're doing. No one has to go anywhere to the heavens to bring it down to us. So what is a resurrection? Now we immediately deep dive into the physical, as I speak about in previous videos. Let's not deep dive down to the physical. Let's deep dive down to the desires. We are to kill off desires that are bad for us, and we are to develop the desires that are good for us. It's all contained within the Torah, but this is something we have to learn through generational rebirths, so to speak. So it's not the body. We're not looking to get this body back. I want a better body. I'll be honest with you. I don't want this body. I want a new one. I want one that's going to let me jump over buildings. I want something, I want a real good body. But that's not what we're focusing on, the body. We're focusing on our desires. See, that's the key to this whole passage is it's the desires. So now let's go to verse 13. Neither is it beyond the sea. In other words, we don't have to cross a sea. Now, what's interesting is sea can also represent people. In other words, we don't have to look at the wisdom of people. This is the way I read this verse, this part of the verse. I don't have to interview 10,000 people to come up with a summary or find the best and brightest people to find out what's there. Why? That you should say, who among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get for us and impart to us that we may observe it. Now, again, we're talking about observing the Torah. What do you mean? Observing, developing good desires and removing the bad desires. So we would go say, well, What's your opinion? What's your opinion? What's your opinion? Isn't that what we're doing when we're looking at commentaries? Isn't that what we're doing when we're looking at the Talmud, Jerusalem Talmud? Isn't it what we're looking at with the Jerusalem Talmud? I'm sorry, did I say that? Well, Babylonian and Jerusalem Talmuds. Are we looking at the Mishnah? Are we looking at Rashi and other great commentators? Are we looking at the Zohar? Are we looking at the Midrash Rabbah and some other great works out there? Well, should we be looking at those? Sure. But should we be taking them as gospel truth? No. They're mostly open-ended questions. They're there to help us to get involved into the conversation because the interpretation of Torah evolves. As we grow, we have more and more insight into the Torah. The understanding of Torah is not written in stone, which many practice. Oh, thus saith such and such, therefore it is. No, not necessarily. We are taught this, that out of the nearly 400,000 characters that the Torah contains, remember, there's only 22 characters, plus that's true, there's 27 if you include the finals. But really, it's 22 characters, and there's nearly 400,000 of them. Each person that exists that loves the Creator, one of those characters applies to that person. In other words, what it's saying is there's over 300,000 perspectives of Torah. We haven't developed them all yet. And yet we're going to focus on thus saith Rashi, thus saith Rambam, thus saith. You mean you didn't learn anything more? We are here to collect perspectives. So let's go to verse 14. No, the thing is very close to you in the heart. Actually, the heart is here. It's your mind. It's your rational and your intuitive mind is what we're ultimately talking about. That's why I always talk about the soul, the mind, the body. That's what the Torah is ultimately teaching us, how to unify those three things into a single cohesive unit. And that's what the Torah is about. So someone comes along and says, oh, Torah's done away with. Oh, so now my soul, my mind, and my body have no way to connect to each other? Think about these things. We have to go beyond the surface. It's very close to us. Why? Because we're learning from generation to generation. It's becoming more and more part of us. Eventually, Jeremiah 31:31 is going to occur. It's not going to be like the old covenant. It's going to be the old covenant in the sense that the Torah is complete, is holy, the covenant. However, it's going to be fully infused within our heart. And that takes generations to occur. And so we resurrect ourselves piece by piece by piece. Not all of a sudden, boom, we're resurrected, but rather we resurrect ourselves little by little by little, generation by generation. We should be looking to improve ourselves every single generation. And as we do that, we will eventually get to the final resurrection. It be in your mouth. You'll be able to talk about it, speak about it, share it. This is why religions I depart from. I don't care which religion it is. I've studied religions, many of them, but I do not participate in the religions. Why? Because they're telling you not to 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 speak what they speak, not to speak what you know. They don't want to hear it. You'll be considered a heretic by them because you don't agree with their doctrines and their dogmas, their narrative. It'll be in your heart. That's Jeremiah 31:31, is it not? It's already there. It just has to be developed. The 613 commandments, we have 613 desires within us. They're already there. We just have to learn to develop them or to remove them. Do I have a desire to have to run off with beautiful women? If I'm a normal guy, the answer is yes. But that's a desire I have to not take part in. It's a desire that has to die so that I have a good desire. For what? My wife, my soulmate. In other words, we deep dive to the physical, but we remove ourselves from the physical desires and we go towards our heart's desires, which is, in my case, my wife. I'm her husband. She hurts, I hurt. She loves, I love. She's happy, I'm happy. She's miserable, I'm miserable. And vice versa. If she knows I'm not happy, she's not happy. So it works both ways. So it's in the heart to observe it. What? To remove the desires that are not good for us, to replace them with the desires that we're supposed to develop within us. We have positive commandments. Thou shalt do such and such. Develop the desire. Thou shalt not do that. Remove that desire. You shall not commit adultery. Work on not doing that. Work on loving your wife. But you see how this all fits together. These four verses are telling us that Moses gave us exactly what humankind needs. No more, no less. We have to change our desires. We have to develop the proper desires, die off the bad desires. Adam was told in the second chapter of Genesis that, hey, don't eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil because you will surely die. What do people think? Oh, physical. No. What's going to die? You're going to have desires that you shouldn't have. And your desires you do have are going to get diluted and are going to what? Fail. And Adam never partook of the fruit. The first Adam never partook of the fruit. Which Adam or man took part of the fruit? The one in the garden. Physical man ate the fruit. Remember, Adam was put to sleep, so to speak. In other words, a lower consciousness was developed that was split into male and female, which inhabited the physical realm. That's the one that ate the fruit. Yeah, his name was Adam. Okay. He ate the fruit, not the Adam in chapter 2. The Adam in chapter 3 ate the fruit. Make a distinction there. It's all there. I hope this helps. I know I kept hitting at this because this is a concept that people don't get. You don't need a savior. You are a savior. You're a savior for yourself. There's no way to short circuit that. And that's where people like to get involved with various religions because they think they can short circuit the reincarnation process, the learning process. You can't do that. Take care, everybody. Shalom, shalom.